Geeta, how are you viewing this in terms of the relationship between the two nations, given the fact that while this is very high on symbolism, is this actually a testimony of how US has stood behind Ukraine, or do you feel as well that it was more lip service from NATO and America as far as helping Ukraine out was concerned?
Well, Shruti, agree with Gaurav that this is a huge show of solidarity when it comes to Biden himself, amid the kind of escalation that reports are suggesting that there is going to be a spring offensive. That President Biden paid a surprise visit to Ukraine and met with Zelenskyy. But again, this also comes at a time when bills are being cleared in the United States of America to ensure that the pledges and the commitments made by US goes through. Having said that, the continued commitment from the United States of America is the largest when it comes to financial and military backing to Ukraine. But it has never been really on time, which is what Gaurav was also talking about, that they pledge a lot of weapons and weapon systems. But when it comes to providing them in time to win the war, we're not looking at that. We're looking at how Ukraine can sustain itself to not lose the war, which should not be the agenda. But yes, just ahead of the first anniversary of the Russia-Ukraine war, Biden being in Kyiv is certainly signaling to Russia that if there is a spring offensive, there is America that is going to back Ukraine.
And before I go to Gaurav as well, Geeta, has there been an attempt of revitalizing the alliance in Europe as well? And here Biden is making American support for Ukraine the centerpiece of that particular argument that he's been batting for in terms of revitalized alliance in Europe.
Well, Chetty, is the question for me or Gaurav?
All right, I'm taking the same question to Gaurav Sawant, who's joining us from the newsroom. Gaurav, has there been an attempt for a revitalized alliance in Europe, and Biden showing this American support, which is high on symbolism, becoming a centerpiece of the argument for revitalized alliance in Europe?
Well, Joe Biden is very keen. Joe Biden is very strongly standing by and standing with President Zelenskyy in Kyiv, not just physically, but also symbolically. It's a very, very major, show of solidarity. But will Joe Biden be able to provide the fighter jets that Zelenskyy seeks? Will NATO provide those fighter jets? There was a huge debate within NATO on providing the tanks that were required. Germany, for a very long time, held out. Some countries did give some tanks, but when it comes to fighter jets, look at NATO members. While they're willing to give fighter jets to Ukraine, not directly. They're saying they'll put it at the Ramstein airbase, the NATO airbase in Germany, and let it be picked up from there. So while everyone's making the right noises, giving that military hardware to Ukraine to carry on this fight. Now, there are two aspects. Is NATO on the same page? Do all members want Russia's defeat? Ukraine wants Russia's defeat. America may want Russia's defeat, but is Germany on the same page? Are other NATO members on the same page? Do they want Russia's defeat, or do they want to ensure that Ukraine does not lose? And that is where this fight or this argument continues to actually, the principles of war, if we were to talk about, you have to be very clear. What's your aim in this war? Is your aim in war to defeat Russia? Well, NATO countries are not on the same page on that.
I'm not an expert on this, but there's a slightly different view which I want to ask you. Probably there was a bit of hesitation as far as using the money to provide Ukraine with the required amount of support was concerned, whether it be weapons or what have you, because probably the president was wary of giving Putin a justification to escalate that conflict as well. So it wasn't about defeating Russia or not. It was also about stopping the Russian president from escalating the conflict further.
Well, the Russian president has done exactly what he's wanted to do all along. He's been able to take over much more territory than he was in control of 1 year ago. But the fact also remains that he hasn't succeeded in taking Kyiv. As many argued, he would be able to, from that second flank that was launched from the Belarus side up north, and Kyiv was barely 80 miles from there. But there he hasn't succeeded. There have been massive fatalities on both sides. This war has been hugely unpopular, both in Russia and in Ukraine. Now,